Jim wanted to talk about.
Get going, it sounds like, are you calling it to order?
Yes, I'm calling it to order.
All right,
Okay.
welcome. Do a good job. Don't make me have to poke you. Okay, you sit in.
TVs are on right next to you too, you know.
I know. Okay.
All right. So I think, Jim, you wanted to talk to us about the draft ordinance related to medical marijuana.
So my thought on this is, I don't feel like I know enough to draft an ordinance on there. The statute is very long. There are all kinds of options for this, that, and the other thing. There are some lawyers, I'm sure, in Ann Arbor or Lansing, where there are student populations and so on, and a lot of use of marijuana, who have gotten to know the law pretty well since it's been adopted, and who've been paying attention to this for a long time. So they draw an ordinance, they know what they're doing, they feel comfortable, they know what the options are.
You know what? Can I stop you 1 minute? Petitions from the public, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
At the beginning.
Oh, well, you know,
Sorry.
he was kind of answering my questions, and I might have some answers for the questions that he'll be bringing to you. All right. Well,
So do you
the
want
medical marijuana ordinance, about 4 months ago, when I saw the need for the ordinance, and I saw that it would be difficult to draft the ordinance, I stopped in and I talked to Alicia and I talked to Ben, and I asked them if they would be willing to help me do the research and help me put together something. And so I think it might have been June or might have been before that. I went out to their place in Trap Rock and we sat down, and what they had collected for me at that time was 3 different ordinances. And Lansing, the capital, what we did is we took Lansing's ordinance and we went through the ordinance, and I can bring you a copy of the ordinance with our editing on it, you know, and we took Lansing's ordinance and we took everything that would apply to the village, and we drafted that ordinance using that ordinance. We changed, like, if it said city, we changed it to village, you know, and, you know, we really did a really good job. It didn't take all that long to do, you know, but I really expected a lot more questions from the council. Alicia and Ben were just ecstatic that you guys had liked what you had seen so far, you know, ecstatic to the point where, you know, they didn't feel the need to assist me in writing up the applications that we'll need for people to come in and get their permits. You know, I don't have a financial interest in this. I'm not going to make my living selling pot. I'm not going to make my living growing pot. You know, I build things. That's what I do. I might make my living building a grow room for somebody, you know, but this is more an ideological issue for me. You know, I've been pro-marijuana since way young, and I believe everybody should be able to do it. And over-regulation would prevent somebody of a lower financial class. It would prevent them from moving up in that financial class if we have over-regulation. You know, and you know, I largely just kind of stayed on the sidelines because I was afraid that my participation in it might influence anybody's thoughts on the ordinance. But the ordinance was drafted using the Lansing ordinance as a base. So I'm sure Lansing's attorneys, you know, were going over it with a fine-tuned code when they did it. But, you know, just to defer, maybe you get another attorney to look over it. But my biggest concern as far as the marijuana ordinance is not the ordinance, but the application itself. It needs, the application that I saw, I don't think is complete. I didn't have any input on that application. And I think that's something that you guys need to look at, is the application itself. And then, of course, get an attorney to review the ordinance to see if it's constitutional, one, because there may be provisions in there that are unconstitutional, you know, and and two, and make sure there's nothing really redundant in there, but I don't know that redundancy would be a problem, you know. And then on the, I know I'm going to forget something now, but 5 minutes isn't very long anyways. The sanitation ordinance, you know, I talked to a couple of owners of apartment buildings, and they were told by the village that they were not able to receive trash services because they were high users. Not as the ordinance states that you could opt out, but they were not allowed to be high users. I'll give you one example, Ron Chop. He stated to me it cost him about $5 a week to do the garbage in his whole building. You know, that's every unit in his building and Newman's, you know, which is 2, 4, 6, 7, 8 units, you know, $5 a week. Really cheap. So he's saving a lot of money. But you know what he also told me? He told me he would be willing to pay every bit per unit that I am charged if the village would allow him. The village doesn't allow him, which is contradictory to the ordinance. You know, I mean, the ordinance should be scrapped. We should start over, because if you're going to bill me for services that I'm not receiving, and then you're going to hold me liable for it and press me and send me a bill every day, but you don't send bills to other people that by ordinance should be getting those bills, it's really unfair, you know. And I hope that you guys can work on this thing. Jim Camp has been doing an astounding job trying to put together the numbers of who should be paying more, who should be paying less, and who should be paying, period. Because there's far more people that should be paying that aren't. You know, there's a lot of people that should be getting billed than the 146 that are. You know, it's a mess, and it deserves your attention. That's all I have.
Which building is Ron Chop?
It's actually Ron Chops and Larry Bazinski. You know, it's a myriad of apartments.
I'm
Newman's.
asking because I'm nosy. That's all.
Newman's. He
Okay.
owns Newman's.
Okay.
They just did the water line there.
Okay.
You know, and here's Alicia right here, and so she can fill you in on the marijuana thing, and that's good because we can tag team. Peggy, all you have to do is pick it up in the cord, and you're done.
And how does it go off, just closing it?
Yep, all you gotta do is close it. Pick it up, and
Okay.
I am out of here. Alicia? Yeah, tag team. You have a good day.
And do you have anything that you want to say beforehand? I mean, Jim is just going to
We're at
start
the
giving his
petition from the
opinion.
public.
Yeah. So do you just want to listen, and then if you have a question or a comment?
I'll just listen, I'm just kind of wondering where we are.
Okay, so Jim?
So I think the village needs somebody in its corner if a ordinance is going to be drafted and adopted, and that somebody should be very familiar with this lengthy, complicated statute. That's problem one. The next problem is we have ordinances that we have trouble enforcing right now because we don't have staff or the finances for it. The zoning ordinance is one. And I think we're going to run into the same problem here if the Village of Calumet is the only entity in the area to adopt an ordinance. It's going to be kind of a magnet for folks who want to work under an ordinance like this. And I think it's going to be kind of like a problem magnet.
Unless you can control the number of dispensaries and
yeah.
that, so you have more control by having licensure requirements, and you have money for the village coffer as well.
But Peg, I mean, we aren't going to have more than a couple of administrative personnel here, and they're very busy as it is. And if we've got 4 or 5 entities here operating under this ordinance, trying to see to it that they comply with reasonable requirements of an ordinance is difficult. And if there isn't compliance, you have to hire attorneys and so on to see to it that it's done.
Is our police officer in? I asked him to, see if he could tell the number of marijuana establishments we already have in place. We need that data.
We have one.
I'm able to speak.
Yeah, please, yeah, if you want to answer.
Oh, okay, I just wanted to say that actually Houghton already has an ordinance, they've had one since 2009. I'm also just kind of wondering what trouble you foresee. We've been operating for almost a year with no problems. And then,
Well, Alicia, the one thing, not to interrupt you, but the one thing that has to happen when people, if this goes through and they do get licensed, there has to be enforcement of it. There has to be accountability, and we have to provide that, period. Okay? Not that you had a problem, because I didn't see any problem there, but the problem is we have to enforce it. But I
Against all comers, some of whom
right,
may be not as accommodating as citizens as you are, who
right.
are pushing the envelope and all the rest of it, and then we have to fight with them, and the village just does not have the people, and the people it's got don't have the knowledge, and so what we may have here is an ordinance that's kind of a cover for people who can operate because there's an ordinance there, but the ordinance isn't being enforced, so they can virtually do what they want because we're not enforcing the ordinance. And I just think that this is potentially a source of a lot of problems for the village.
but you have the opportunity to put a cap on dispensaries in Calumet. And I think that's why Laura set the fee at $57,000 just for that.
Can I make a comment here?
Sure.
I've done some research to find out what's really going on with this, okay? And I've come up with a couple of things we should know before we even start discussing this. Okay, Laura is the one that makes the rules, right? There's a 5-person commission. You probably are aware of this. 5-person commission. Right now, that 5-person commission is recommending and voting tomorrow, September 15th, on whether or not, well, what they're going to do is probably, everything I read is, they're going to say every dispensary, everything that's already running has to close down until they get their rules and regulations in place.
We have
So somebody
closed by
like-
December 15th.
No, okay, well, okay, here's what they said. If you don't close down, you are going to be ineligible for
Licensing.
licensing. But I'm not sure saying December 15th.
No, that's what they said. We have until
Okay, well, they haven't voted on
December 15th
it.
to wind down our affairs, and then that gives patients time to find a caregiver,
Well,
because closing down all these facilities is gonna take away medicine from 2/3 of the card holders in
Okay,
the state.
well, let me just finish here, but it's gonna happen tomorrow, they're gonna vote on this, at some time during the day. So, she could be right on the December 15th.
That I have.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody follows this more closely than I do.
Barring Laura or whatever, the ordinance has to be in a minimum by December 15th, or there will be for sure a shutdown. And
Okay, well,
whatever Laura does might
that's not
have
what we're
another
talking
problem.
about.
No.
This is
So
not
that's
what
our plan.
Okay, can I finish, please? Because I can bring it up on my phone. What they're looking at is, and tomorrow, what they're finding out tomorrow is, it's looking like December 15th is when they have to have all their ducks in a row and all the rules and regulations, but they're looking at like shutting down when they make the decision tomorrow. Like everybody has to shut down. And if they don't shut down, their rule is going to be, but this hasn't happened yet, that you are going to be ineligible for a permit.
That's
They
not
will
true.
not, well, this is what I read on the Detroit News, and I've got some newspaper things and whatever. I'm telling you what I read. Tomorrow is the day they're gonna do this, okay? They're gonna make this stipulation, so, you could be 100% right. I'm just telling you what I've heard out there. So if tomorrow they make the decision to, everybody's gotta shut down, until these rules and regulations are in place, then she would have to immediately shut down, okay? They may say you've got till December 15th to shut down and reapply, I don't know. But it's looking like everything I read, and it'll happen on the 15th, this board is gonna say, from this day forward, everybody has to shut down. If you don't, you're gonna be ineligible to apply, and nothing's gonna go on until December 15th. So, I just wanna put that out there.
Well, here, this goes to my concern. We haven't had a statute like this until recently.
Mhm.
So if there was enforcement at all, it was by the state police, or anybody else who cared to get involved to enforce state law.
Mhm.
And I think that the state does not have the resources or the time itself to be supervising this sort of activity.
The license fees.
And so it's kind of pushing this off onto the local units and saying, if you don't want it, don't adopt an ordinance. If you do want it, then it's going to be your baby to follow our rules and regulations and apply the law and the rules and regulations and see to it that there's compliance. And what I'm saying is the village is not in a position to know enough about the ordinance, to know enough about the rules and regulations in terms of the amount of personnel it's got, the knowledge of the personnel involving the rules and regulations and so on. I think that this is the kind of thing that has to be done by a much larger community with more resources in the village of Calumet that's going to be done well. Otherwise, it is just a source of enormous problems.
Such as.
Okay, we have to wait to the end for public comment, unless you want to have her speak.
I'd like to say that I'm taking my broker's continuing ed this month, and I'm sure we'll address what Laura does, which is licensing and regulation for different professions. So I'd like to have some input from, I think Jody Patrick was on Laura, on the board, so he would be a really good resource, and I'll be talking to him.
But Peggy, there's 5 individuals that are on this specific licensing for medical marijuana. There's many different people on different boards that have to do with Laura. This is a specific 3 who are gonna make this decision tomorrow. Okay, they're gonna decide whether you have to close down immediately and then apply when they've got the rules, and that's gonna happen, okay? What the date is when you have to close by, I don't know, but that's something we need to look into.
Well, until they meet and render a decision,
It's
we can't
tomorrow.
say what they're gonna do. We have to do it before we say
Okay,
what
well,
we're gonna do.
I'm not telling you done it, I'm telling
No.
you, this is what they've got in consideration is everyone that has a dispensary, because you gotta remember, I've talked to law enforcement, and in our jurisdiction, this Michigan Supreme Court and our Attorney General has made the ruling that the medical marijuana law does not apply to dispensaries. Dispensaries are still illegal, but in this jurisdiction, and I've talked to law enforcement, they do not enforce it because our prosecuting attorney doesn't want to touch it because it's a big can of worms, okay? This is what I've been told by
Are
law
you saying
enforcement.
dispensaries are illegal?
Yes. they are.
So the village gave you permission
Okay, but here's her
to
little,
do something that's illegal?
pretty much, yes.
I came down
Yes.
there, I sat at this table
Yes.
with Rob, and I was given permission. If that wasn't his jurisdiction, that is not my
Oh,
problem.
it's not your fault at all.
Somebody should have
No, it's not your fault.
absolutely way before this.
But hers, you know, in the big picture of life, like for instance, I looked up when I was downstate, all different jurisdictions, down in Oakland County, where my daughter and family have a lake house, I looked up all what's going on there, and Oakland County enforces this, no dispensaries, no selling of marijuana in shops, period. They enforce it, they take people to court, there's pretty much nothing going on with that. There's still the medical marijuana providers, you know, that can grow so many plants in their house, like, you know, there's a lot of them around here. So you gotta bear in mind, when you know, we're doing something that's illegal, but it's being overlooked because when they wrote this bill, it was a can of worms, and they should have done a better job, okay? But I don't believe, and I'm gonna give my good points and bad points, I don't believe that the people that are, have medical marijuana cards are going to suffer because there are plenty of little houses and apartments where they are providers. There's plenty of those people.
Yeah, the black market.
Oh, okay,
That's
okay, well, that's
But
not
we don't
black
have
market.
to
They're allowed
to
to do
do
that,
that.
they're allowed to do that. But let me
Oh,
interject.
yeah.
Hold
Let
on,
it
hold
Let
on.
it talk. Let it talk.
But another issue I have too is, you know, I would like to see, like, we have conflicting federal, state law, you know, some jurisdictions say yes, some say no, because right now we're violating the law, period, we are, okay? We are violating what the Supreme Court said and what the Attorney General said for the state of Michigan, Mr. Schuette. We're violating it, but because they're not enforcing it, that's what's happening. Now, I'd like to just see all the rules and regulations go, and if you want to do it, do it. I don't want to regulate you, I don't want to spend law enforcement, I don't want to spend time doing stuff. If that's what the people of Michigan want, go at it, okay? But right now, and I'm trying to have empathy for people that have medical marijuana, but if you were to canvass and they were to voluntarily come forward and say, where did you get your medical marijuana card from? Probably 98 out of 100 would say Dr. Bob, Bill, Jim, who comes to the hotel room. You know, they're not getting these things from their primary doctor, okay? Most of them are not.
So you're gonna punish the people that are?
No, I'm not punishing, I'm just saying, you know, my empathy for the people that really need it is high, but my empathy for people that go and give Dr. Bob, Bill, Joe $250 with records from their primary. Now, why didn't their primary doctor give it to them?
Primary doctors won't write it.
Okay, bingo, right there, so they don't think they need
It
it.
doesn't
No,
make
they should
them
be
feel
able to.
better.
Well, I'm just telling you what I know, and I'm trying to, then I'll give you the good points of it. But right now, this village is violating the law by giving her a permit. She knows that, because she's a smart cookie, and I gotta tell you, you run a terrific business. I don't have any problem with you two. None. But we gotta follow, I understand, but we gotta follow the law.
Yeah.
Now, I think tomorrow we should take notice of what this 5-member board does.
That was
okay?
Tuesday.
It's
They met Tuesday.
But they're gonna make a final
No, they already
decision.
met ruling on
I already
Tuesday.
made it, I've been trying to tell you.
Laura came down and before the meeting said, listen, the board can't do nothing. Laura does everything. They said, it doesn't matter what the board says later on today, nobody's getting shut
Friday.
down. No one's getting shut
They
down.
put in.
Okay, well-
Everybody is open till December 15th, and we
I can't
reserve
bring
the
it up
right.
here because I don't have it.
My point again is,
There's just too much.
this is an extremely complicated, difficult. The law and attitudes are changing as time goes by. The village has enormous problems, quite apart from marijuana. The staff is, it's problems they're
That's
trying
why
to
you
solve.
get the refund.
And we
those
just,
funnels.
we, every time we adopt an ordinance and we don't enforce it, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And here, in many of these ordinances, you know, there are occasions where they could be enforced. Some of the ordinances, there are no occasions where they
Right.
are enforced. There's just no activity that is covered by the ordinance. But
Mhm.
there's going to be a lot of activity potentially here. And the more folks who come in under this ordinance, if the village adopts one, the more people we're going to have to oversee, supervise, or they're going to operate carte blanche
And they're gonna slam
and
on your
ignore
finger.
our ordinance, and we aren't going to have the resources or whatever to
I'm surprised I
enforce.
didn't know.
Yeah, we'll let you talk, you know, because I respect what you have to say.
I just don't, it's a problem magnet, it's craziness. We should just stay a million miles away from it because we don't have the resources to do the job that has to be done if we have an ordinance like that, period. It's obvious.
Mhm. Do we have a copy of it? Do you have a copy of what the village gave you in reference to permission to operate on 6th? Do you have anything like that? Or was it a verbal? Or was it just a verbal?
I would like to know how much you've spent on enforcements thus far in the last 8 months.
There hasn't been an ordinance to enforce. I mean,
No, so
whatever
that's
happens,
something
happens.
else.
But what have you spent money on in
Because
regard to my shop?
there's been a lot of people that come here to come to the shop that been in the community spending money. you know.
I have over 300 registered members.
And
but
all the
only
things you say are
thus
right,
far.
but that doesn't, okay,
No,
we have to
because
be.
an idea that something can go wrong, that's not fair, that's not valid, that's not accurate. That's
Especially
not
in
enough
months,
to
we
allow.
haven't had.
When you have so many people right here in this community that need that medicine, you're not thinking about them at all. I'd like a community vote.
Well,
I
go ahead.
I mean, I have several questions. First of all, what other municipalities I think you've indicated Portage Township,
There's one in the
City of
mall.
Houghton.
There's
No,
one in the mall.
I'm talking about who's putting in ordinances? City of Houghton?
Houghton has.
There you have one.
Okay, Portage
Portage
Township, okay, and then is Hubble what, Torch Lake Township?
Torch Lake, I don't know if they're going or not, I don't know.
Okay, so you don't have.
I know they have one written for their, medical, caregivers.
Because is that, the Noggin Shop, is that Torch Lake Township?
Yes.
Okay, so we know there's at least two municipalities that either put one in place or intend to put one in place. Do you know if they put one in?
I don't think they have yet, I think they just allowed it like we've allowed them.
I don't know if
I
Holden
don't
has,
think
I
they-
know they wrote one back in 2013. The way it's written, I don't know, like, I'm not a legal mind, so I don't know for sure if the way it's written will follow. I think they might have to amend it.
Holden will definitely have to amend it with this, recent.
But as far as the actual enforcement process, I don't understand, because
Well,
the way the state came down is that
And that's, okay, and that's kind of where I'm going. Okay, so first of all, we believe Portage Township and City of Houghton are going to enact ordinances that would allow this. So, and I'm trying to think about how do we, view this. So from Jim's perspective, I agree. He doesn't have the time or the background to know whether this is a good ordinance or not. So I guess if the council were to.
I
There is no
know,
background.
you need a competent
Absolutely.
lawyer who
Absolutely.
is well versed
Yeah.
at this law.
Yeah.
Somebody can't sit at the kitchen table.
No,
And
no,
draft an
no,
ordinance
and that would be my
that-
question is, then who drafted Portage Townships or City of Houghton?
Well, I don't think they've drafted it, I think Portage
Right,
Township recently approved this medical marijuana with dispensaries and stuff, but I don't think that ordinance has been drafted yet.
But if the council were to decide, that's my question, is how would we determine whether this is a good ordinance or not? And getting an outside counsel, I would assume that Portage Township, City of Houghton would have hired someone who is able to do that. So that's, and I'm just saying, this is if the council were to go forward. One of the other questions, of course, and Peggy brought it up, and I think I asked you that, does this allow us to restrict the number?
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Oh, that's
Fencing
a lot,
would
yeah,
have
that's
up
absolutely.
25.
Okay, so you can restrict not only whether you have growers, processors, distributors, et cetera, dispensaries, but you can also say you can only have one or two dispensaries, and you know that for a fact.
But here's where your problem
Somebody
is,
listen
Dave.
to that.
Nobody knows what this 5 board is gonna write up for rules and regulations. It may be very tight. They may say you have to have law enforcement go there once a week. You may have to have a board that regulates it. We don't know. We don't know what they're gonna do.
And again, I mean, that's.
I know they're gonna charge us 10,000 to 57,000 for the license.
I understand.
No, for the taking care of.
We understand that, but I feel like I think there's good points and bad points, but right now my bad is worse because I wanna see what they come up with. Because it may be not, we may not have the manpower like you said, we may not have, it may not be cost effective.
You get the funding to it.
But did you hear Ben, he was
You're
just saying
being
you're passing
facing
it along
Just one at a time.
for the enforcement.
Okay, but it's gonna come to us, Peggy, not to them, okay? The state's gonna charge them a fee. The state gets the fee. We do not get the fee. We get like a little percentage, like
We
3%.
did a licensure fee of $5,000. If we
Right,
so
and then
choose.
we get supposedly 3% of whatever, some tax thing or whatever, but the problem is that we don't know what the rules and regulations are
Colorado
gonna
right
be
now
until
is
it's put in
$2
place.
billion.
Right, I understand that.
You
But-
don't seem to.
Oh, I do. I've really researched this big time, and I understand where you're coming from, because you want to keep your shop open. I'm very respectful of you. The only problem I have is, I want to see what's required of this village before we do anything. I think we need to do a wait, see.
I hear you on that point there.
Okay,
All I'm saying
if we
is,
knew what it was, we could
the
make a better
state, the
decision.
state's gonna be charging us 10,000 to 57,000 for enforcement. That's what they charge, for their enforcement team to come around.
They're not going to come up here for one thing.
Right.
They're not, I'm sorry.
But that's my other question is, okay, what enforcement activities does the village, I mean, we're talking that this is gonna be an onerous task, and so when I look at section 5, is that essentially what we're responsible for monitoring?
We don't know, because they have not said.
No, and I agree, let's see what the final rules are, but, when I look at section 5, I don't know that these are so difficult to monitoring.
Okay, let me stop you right there. I thank you for people for giving us this, because this is sort of a guideline, but I'm absolutely 100% against the marijuana committee writing an ordinance and giving it to us, because we should, like he says, we should have somebody that's competent that knows what they're doing.
And it's on your side.
And and it's beneficial to the village. Like I said, I appreciate the work you put into it, but we shouldn't be looking at the virtues of this. This is something that comes from the marijuana committee, and I think it's like, thank you for giving it to us, but it needs to go right up under here until we have an attorney that looks at something, and we get our own ordinance.
So might be an attorney to draft one then?
Well, we have to decide on that.
I think the village would have to, find something, and that's why I was asking if you know who is drafting the ordinance for Portage Township or City of Hope, because I'm assuming that they would have been employed by
They have their own attorneys over there. We don't have our own attorney.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
no offense to you, but we don't have
But
our
again,
all-purpose state attorney.
they may be.
I wonder how capable their accountants
I
are.
don't know.
I'm skeptical.
Well, but that's my question, is where do we find this attorney who would be willing to look at this and say, this is, this is a good ordinance, this is a bad ordinance? And I was going to start with Portage Township and the City of Hope on the assumption, and I don't know who they've hired. I would assume there are people who are specializing in this. I doubt, like us, I don't think their city attorneys would.
They're gonna be pro marijuana, but here's my thing. I've looked at all the things. I think Alicia runs a wonderful shop over there, okay? Should she have been given permission since it was illegal? Probably not, okay? Because it is illegal in the state of Michigan to run a shop that she has. It's just that Polk County has chosen not to do it. My problem is, we have no idea what the rules and regulations are gonna be, and I think we can discuss this till we're blue in the face, but I wanna take a look at what's required of them and what's required of us, and we should be on a whole do-nothing pattern until we get our ducks in a row. We don't have any ducks in a row right now. We're talking about paperwork that was given us by the marijuana community. We've been, we're listening to our
That's why I said next month.
Right. Not next month, it's December.
By next month, I'll have information on Laura direct from people that are participating.
I
in
I
that
agree with
stage.
you, if they have
And
not.
then-
But they're not gonna have it gelled up till December 15th, Peggy. They can tell us whatever they want, but the way government works is unless I see with my lion eyes exactly what we're required and what they're required, I wanna see that in paper, in law, boom, done. I wanna see it. I don't wanna go and write
That's why I'm
marijuana.
telling you that the real estate brokers in Michigan will be selling properties and they will be very familiar with America.
But they're not the ones that make the decision,
I've
Peggy.
dealt with realtors for years. And there may be one or two of them that were halfway legally competent or careful. Realtors want to move real
I am a
estate,
licensed
they want to
broker,
get,
I
they want
really
to get
take
paid.
exception to that.
I think,
Well, and
there
again,
are about two or three for whom I have great respect, and the others, you tell them to do this, or you tell them to do that, they don't care. They don't, you tell them, here's something about the law, you'll see this again and again and again. Remember this, because it will be helpful in your business. The next time you talk with them, it's like, you never said anything.
I was one of the top 10 in our 140 office region.
Yeah,
so
I can
when
believe
you-
it, because
When you say that,
I can
there's
believe it,
very
because
few
the
that are-
others are realtors, when it comes to law, or this, that, or that.
I'm just saying,
retailer.
I'd be able to get more input that I think would be helpful because these other people are also
Yeah,
interested.
Well,
realtors are the last.
But they're gonna
people
be
you go to
helpful, but
for
we
legal
still wanna have the final draft, what they require from us, Peggy, because things can change very
Well,
quickly.
absolutely. So what does this committee do? Make a recommendation to
So
the council, or do
there's-
we bring it to the full council and see what their pleasure is? How do we go forward?
well,
From today.
and last month, the council did say that we should continue moving forward. If you want to put it up to another vote, that's fine.
No,
To
we don't need
Virginia's-
another.
to
vote.
Virginia's-
Well,
to
if
Virginia's
we're supposed
point-
to move forward.
Well, no,
I wanna
number
do this
one,
right, 'cause
right,
we're always
exactly.
backtracking,
And that's what we-
backtracking,
and that's
every
what we
meeting,
wanna do.
Every time.
So there's two things. Number one, we have to see what these final regulations look like. That's what you need to see.
I need
And
to
those
see
should
that.
be available this week.
No,
Or I'm sorry, Tuesday of next week, or
No.
I'm sorry, not sure.
that's not correct, Dave. What they're deciding on right now is whether all marijuana dispensaries and things that we're looking at to write in
Okay.
ordinances should shut down and
As of some date.
as of a certain date until their rules and regulations are in order. Their rules and regulations are not gonna be in order till December 15th. So Alicia may be right, they don't have to shut down till the 14th. They may make a decision in the meantime that we're working on this and we want everybody shut down because it's illegal in the state of Michigan to have these.
No, they made a decision that everyone can stay open.
Well, I haven't seen it, I wanna see it. Maybe we can
Look it up tomorrow.
Okay, I mean, that's one of Virginia's
Okay,
things.
I wanna see the rules and
Choose that
regulations so
person.
we can make a good decision. And
Yeah.
plus,
I
in
appreciate everyone's opinion, but I think we really need to go off of facts.
Right, I
Okay,
agree.
well, the fact is,
That's what
we
need
don't
to-
know what we have to do, that's a fact. You know, this is a little jurisdiction with little to know, and it's not even just a money issue, it's like, who does this? Like, right now, we have a lot of ordinances, and I'll give you, for instance, we have a blight ordinance, okay? Awesome. We have never enforced anything on it because, we voted a few months ago to try to contract an attorney for Mr. Turshid so we can deal with these things. We don't have anything in place who's enforcing it. We don't have the people to do it. That's something that needs to be discussed. We may need a part-time person that's an ordinance/code enforcement person. Otherwise, you can bring me all the paper you got and I can use it for fire starter or
But
whatever.
once again, the council is dropping the ball. That ordinance has not been fully executed. I don't see any side copy. I don't see an
Again, we're talking about, we're at
talking
the
about
marijuana.
marijuana,
right
yeah.
now. We're talking about
The
the
structure
marijuana.
of marijuana is changing and we have to move with it. That's coming a lot. Recreational is coming in 2018, so brace yourself for that. whether you
That would be
like
great. Then we're
marijuana
done.
Or not.
Then we're done.
We're just trying to follow.
No, because they're gonna follow the same structure as the medical.
If
So
you don't know the law,
communities are
read
gonna
the law.
have to decide if you wanna have
Read
people.
the ordinance.
Okay, but here's
This
the
is-
problem I'm running into, and I don't wanna argue with you or anybody here, is I personally want to see what the rules and regulations are. I wanna see them in stone set, done, okay? After that's done, we will look at it and say, okay, this is what she has to do, and this is what we have to do. We have no idea what this is gonna entail or what we have to do. We have no idea.
And
You know, if we pass an ordinance and say, okay, we got this ordinance, and then all of a sudden the rules come out, it's like, whoa, we've gotta have somebody do this. You know, we've gotta see what it entails first. So I am a proponent of not against, not for, I wanna see what they decide to do with this before we make any decision whatsoever. That's my feeling on it.
That's fair, and the board meets.
I think it's fair to everybody.
Until December 15th.
They'll
They
be
meet
on
once a month.
November 15th.
Yep,
I mean, that's the
December
only
15th.
prudent course. You have to know what the
Otherwise, we're in
rules
that
are.
pedal.
Because they've already decided they're gonna leave everybody open, and the reason why they're leaving everybody open is because patients won't be able to get their medicine.
Because there's 262,000 cardholders in the state, 95,000 of them
Second
have a
largest
caregiver,
in
which
America.
means 2/3 of those people rely on dispensaries for their medicine.
But okay, Alicia, you have to look at our side. I agree with what you just said, but we're a body, he's a legal
And
guy.
I do,
We're a village body, and we
I
have to
can
look at,
respect you
we
wanting
have
to
to look
see
at the
the
facts,
laws,
whether you like them or
and then
not.
we
We
can
gotta look
decide
at that.
whether or not
One
it's
at a
gonna be
time.
too much manpower to enforce, too much money
We
to
don't know.
enforce.
Yeah, we
But
don't
to
know.
just have this
I
idea based
respect
off
that.
nothing, it
Yeah.
is so falsely projectory and wrong.
Well, it's just that we've gotta know what this entails, because you would probably agree with this, when this law came into effect in 2008, it was a big, like, just put it out there disaster, and they've had nothing but problems since day one. That word comes in with the Supreme Court and the Michigan Attorney General saying dispensaries, shops like yours are illegal. But because there's so many everywhere, some jurisdictions choose not to enforce that. And our jurisdiction would be one of them. Like, say, I'll give you for instance, if our village chief went over there and said, you're in violation of the state law, you know, he could write up a report, possibly arrest you, go through the thing, because he legally can do this.
And they
But is it
have
gonna go
because
anywhere when it
they're
gets to the prosecuting attorney's office? Law enforcement tells me no. So it's difficult. Why have laws? Why have enforcement? Why have anything if you don't know what the hell you're doing? And I'm using the word hell. Nobody knows what the hell they're doing. I think we should have a wait and see so we know what the hell we're doing. And right now we don't.
I mean, I understand that, because you're right, you need to know what the regulations are. What enforcement activities must the village follow?
Not just
What is-
enforcement, but there's gonna be a lot of rules with this, Dave, not just enforcement.
Right.
Like what's required of them, us, whatever. I wanna see it.
Right, and they're working on that, or Laura's working on
December
that.
15th.
Right.
The board's working on that, the MMLFA is working on that. That's the member of 5 people that are supposed to, the licensing agreement
There's
together,
5 people.
not govern dispensaries or anything.
You know, my concern is, though, is you put them out of business.
Okay, but here's the problem. Yes, you're looking at the compassion side, absolutely, but it is not our job as a body, an elected body, to make decisions on humanitarian or whose feelings are gonna get hurt. Our job here is to follow the law and do things correctly, okay? And I have empathy for them if something happens, I do. I think you two are wonderful and run a wonderful shop.
I can
But
move my
it's
shop
our job not to feel
else.
sorry for people, but to do the right thing. And we shouldn't be here if we're not willing to do the right thing according to the law, our ordinances, and that's my take on it.
We haven't been, and all the other ordinances up to date, so I just think.
Well, we can't fix 4 years, baby, we're
It's,
moving on right now.
But I mean, you're here to oversee your people, right?
Right.
And I get a vote from the people, please. I'd like your community to see.
We are gonna listen to you 100% when
Probably
we figure
would
out what
not
they
have
want,
to.
what is required.
Because
That's
an election costs like, or a ballot issue costs between 3,000 and 5,000.
We can't put a ballot issue on state law.
No, I'm saying whether the community wants it, that's what
It
she
doesn't
was
matter,
asking.
state law comes up, the community says, okay, we want it, but state law says, no, you can't do it, that supersedes
State
us.
law
Right,
has,
we
I
can't
think
pass
that's
something.
already
We
been
can't do that.
approved.
State law has said,
Yes.
Yes,
as of a
we
certain
can.
date,
It's
that
coming.
this will be
By
permitted.
December 15th, we have to have a license agreement ready for you to fill out. That's what the state said.
I'm
They're not
just
gonna
saying-
turn around and say, no, they can't.
There might be a problem, and they're saying no, but we need to look into it. There may be a problem that this board could at any time make people that have these things that are considered illegal in the state cease to operate until they get their rules and regulations in order, and if you don't, you're gonna be ineligible. This is what I read on multiple sites.
December 15th is the date that they take
Well,
applications.
there's two things here. Number one, there is a state law that has said this will be permitted. What they're now doing is defining how they will apply that law. with
But
what
right now,
rules
it's
and
not
regulations.
permitted.
Correct, but a law has been passed that will
Mhm.
permit dispensaries.
Right.
That is
So
there.
if a law, but the point is, if the law comes through and permits dispensaries, then they can do what they want, whether or not we have it.
No, because that law says that the village, a municipality must enact an ordinance permitting those 5 or 6, those 5 or 6 things. And if you don't put that ordinance in place, then dispensaries, are
All
not
marijuana things
permitted.
are out of it.
Right.
But Jim is right, what the law says is you make the decision, it isn't a given in the law that they can do it. It's like every jurisdiction can make a decision, so it'll be our decision, Holton's decision.
Exactly.
It's not a given, like you say, it's not a carpet thing.
We
If it was a
have- we
carpet
have to
thing,
take action.
We wouldn't have to do anything
Yeah,
like
we
you
have
said,
to
we would
take
just be
action.
out of it.
Yeah.
I wanna know what these people, I don't think the government works very quickly, and I wanna see what the heck they come up with.
It doesn't work very quickly.
No,
They get
it
ordinances,
doesn't.
And
they get the
that's-
regulations out by December 15th, I'd be surprised.
They're gonna get an extension, but I'm concerned for her business too. This board may shut everybody down by their readiness, so I don't know. I've just read this in multiple places.
Again,
Penalize
if the
the
state
county
wants to
or
regulate it,
the
if the state wants to set the rules and enforce their rules, fine.
Mm-hmm.
If the state wants to fob responsibility for assuring compliance off with the local units, we are not in a position to do that. We never will be.
That's why they give you the resources to get into.
Well, no, I mean, what we need to know
No, I
is what
understand.
are the local enforcement requirements? I mean, that's, what is the state
So
going to
we
do?
just wanna know that.
No,
Yeah, what is
we
the
don't
state
know
going to
that.
do? What is our responsibility? Because that's Jim's point.
No, I agree completely on that point, and they haven't nailed that in stone yet.
Right.
Looking at a lot of the.
And that's Virginia's point.
Yes,
Yeah, I mean, I
agree with
wanna see it.
what
I
you're
don't trust anybody. I
A
wanna see.
lot of the other
it.
ordinances that are written up, there is basically zero to none.
Mhm.
And so that's, so yeah, I mean, Jim's concern is what does enforcement mean for the village? And is it something that we are capable of doing with current resources? Virginia's point is, we don't know what those enforcement activities or requirements are yet, and that creates a problem. So, I mean, so at this point, I mean, my observation is, we don't know enough. You know, it's, you know, and again, if, you know, and I don't know what happens if those regulations aren't put in place until December 15th. That's really a nightmare for communities, because you don't know what this ordinance should look like until those things are in
And
place.
they will have the permit process, okay, we'll say, if we go with this, they're gonna say, we're gonna say what we want to allow, but it's the state that's gonna have the form that they have to submit to the state.
Our ordinance like not adjustable or amendable?
They are, they
Of
can
course
be,
it is,
yes,
absolutely.
they can be amended.
But you gotta remember, when this marijuana law went out in 2000, and they have to agree with this, when they passed it in 2008, the Supreme Court says dispensaries, they made a decision, are illegal, but because
Well, it's
the law was so.
2013.
Okay, but that's when they said it, but in 2008, it wasn't, it didn't provide for it, then it became a problem, like in bigger jurisdictions where they just had so many of these, so then they got this Supreme Court ruling and the Attorney General ruling that says they are not part of the 2008 law, period. They are illegal. But most jurisdictions, or a lot of them, don't have the manpower or the money, so it's because they're already there, they just let it fly.
And now we speed up to 2017.
Okay, but
and
would
they
you
said
agree
they're
with
not
that?
to allow them,
Yeah.
right? But now we're here.
I
We're not in
understand.
2013, now we're here.
I understand.
Now we're drafting licenses, now it's time to move forward.
We have to see what it entails. That's my opinion, and for me to make a good decision, I gotta see the rules. I can't.
If you're just worried about how much it's gonna cost the village for enforcement, is that what
No,
we're talking about?
I think the bigger thing is, well, there's several
Yeah,
questions.
how much is it gonna cost?
Number one, you know, we need to have someone review an ordinance, you know, who, again, would be identified by the village, and therefore working in the village's, you know, interests. And again, how do you pay for that? That's one question that we have. Number two, when these regulations are put in place, what constitutes enforcement by the village? What are we required to do? And
Yeah.
again,
How much it costs?
well,
Not just, manpower is a big
Right.
thing.
That costs money.
I mean,
It's all money.
but
The
you're
record
right, you're right.
keeping,
Right.
It's all money.
To some
It's
extent,
all money.
right.
It's more than money. I mean,
What
It's
are you
hard to
going
find
do?
people to
What is
work
the
in the
village
village.
gonna have to
Let's
do?
finish.
it's hard to find capable people to work in the village office.
To do
Not just to
what,
find them,
though?
let alone to pay them.
But-
What do you
and that's the
foresee
question.
wanting to do?
That's the question. So
Yeah.
what
that's
are we
what we're-
required to do? That's, because that's how we determine, can we do it or not? And if it does become cost prohibitive, then we'll say,
If
well, we
that's all
can't
we're
do it.
concerned about, I'm not concerned.
Yeah, and
Because
that's what
it's
we-
gonna have you guys get a little
We're
nut.
not piloting this program, this has gone
No.
on in Colorado,
But I'm
in
trying to answer the
Nevada,
question.
in California, in Washington, look at this.
But I'm trying to answer questions. I'm just trying to, you know, I
No, I hear
mean,
you.
you have to convince 6 people.
Our concern is that we can't pass an ordinance that's in conflict with the state law, and we have to fine tune what the state law is gonna be.
If that's
I
your
know
conflict,
you're-
then I.
Yes, I
State law
understand
is not-
completely.
Yes.
I understand that completely. And if you're concerned about how much manpower and money it's gonna cost the village, I understand that too.
It's
But I'm not
manpower.
concerned about that because I know the state's charging way too much money that they're not gonna be coming
Well,
around.
except
But,
they're not
but
gonna give it
then,
to us.
we're not the state though, remember, we're not the state.
Listen,
We're just-
if I'm paying
we're
$70,000 to open up, to have a business, literally, it's gonna cost us $70,000 just to be open.
Oh, yeah, no,
We
No,
understand that, but
No,
then they
and-
expect us to do all the work.
But no.
And they
that
collect
we
all the
have to
money
pay the
pretty
state.
much.
We're paying the state $1,250 a week for enforcement.
Right.
That, they can't, I can't imagine they're gonna want a whole lot.
Who's, okay, let me ask you
And that's,
this
and so
question.
that's my
Let me see
question.
that much more
And that's my
person,
question.
you shut me down.
If our enforcement requirement is section 5, this isn't so bad.
That's what they're.
I mean, our police department can
I
do this,
honestly,
and that's
I'm
my
not-
question.
But they
Is what-
don't know the
I'm-
rules.
And that's what I'm saying, is
I'm
we
willing to bet
need
that
to
your
know.
enforcement's gonna be whatever you wanna make.
It's what we need to know is what does the state require of the local government? I mean, that's what we don't
Of
know.
everything, we need to look at all of it.
I think we know where everybody stands at this moment, given what's available to us. So I'm not sure that at this point, we're doing anything constructive.
Yeah.
Right, we're not doing
There's too many
anything.
things we don't know, there's things we don't know.
We need to do do this
So we
right.
need to table it,
So we're
or
respectful.
take
I don't think it's
Sure.
until next month, and by next month, there should be more
And we'll
concrete.
There's not gonna be
answers.
anything until the 15th of December, Peg. You can tell us that your little realtor friends say that this is gonna happen. I wanna see it written down by the 5-member board on Laura. I don't wanna say Jim Tertia told me, or your realtor friends told me, I wanna see it. Because you can't make a good decision until you get it correct, you get it written in stone, and then we can look at
I
it.
think my little realtor friends would be insulted by your,
No, I don't.
Okay, well, I mean, again, that's.
They'll be meeting on October 17th and November 28th at the Big Ten Conference Room in Keller Hotel at
We would
1:30
like to
p.m.
live stream it.
What does that say again? Say that again?
At 1:30 p.m. on October 17th and November 28th. They'll be held at the Big Ten Conference Room A in the Kellogg Hotel.
What will be held?
The board meeting.
Okay, what about the thing that I just read, which I don't have, where the board is gonna meet tomorrow, the.
This is, they already met. They met on Tuesday,
Okay,
and this is what
And-
they figured out.
okay,
This is straight from Laura.
okay, September 12th.
They came up with some fees, like it's 48,000 just for an application for the state. It's 10 to 57,000
For everything except Class A, which is cabinet time.
Yep, for Class A grower's license, 10,000 to 57,000 for, how do they word
the
it?
state is looking at this for the economic.
Oh, yeah, it's revenue, yeah, it's revenue.
They're starting to put it together. I mean, they already got 40 million in a slush fund right now. They're using 8 million to start this all up.
There is an article though that was on yesterday, there was a meeting in the board, there's a
But that
meeting, it
one's
said
straight
it's
tomorrow.
meeting tomorrow again, they met on the 12th, they're gonna meet on the 15th.
No,
They're considering things, I just read it, but I can't, I have a track one, so.
Any information you get, will pass on to us, so we,
Right,
And it
yeah,
doesn't-
because again, there's too many,
Yeah.
there's too much concern, yeah.
We still don't
I
know.
appreciate it.
We can't go on hearsay gossip, what this one knows, that one knows. We have to have the rules in front of us. I wanna see them like this. Boom, there they are. Let's discuss it.
Got it. I'll get that for you.
All right, so that's that. What else do you guys want to talk about?
I'd like to talk about the blight ordinance. Do you want to get the book of our ordinances? Well, we have our attorney here too.
Thank you for coming, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you for
We're
having us.
gonna do this the right way. If you
Yeah, we'll get some more information.
I'll work for that.
Okay? Yeah, thank you.
Our book of ordinances, we need. Because our ordinances are not executed. I don't know what happened when we're even published. It's a big mess.
Okay, here's what I'm
And
proposing.
when you were all about passing a blight ordinance, okay, it was passed, but did you follow up and see if
Yes.
it was signed? Was it published? Was a copy sent to the whole county?
That, okay, we pay the
That's
signing
supposed
office
to
a
be
lot of money,
on
okay?
file
It's
there.
not my job to be following up, which I have been doing on a lot of things, okay? If they can't do their job in that office, they don't need to be in the office, Peggy. So if I was to walk in there and find out they didn't, I would not be happy. I
Well,
cannot
I
be the
think that's
follow-up. I cannot be the follow-up on every single thing that's going on.
I know, but you come up with a methodology of, okay, you pass an ordinance, you look at the number of days to publish, you
Okay.
attach
We
your
will
copy
ask
as a news
What we
article.
ought to do is
send
what I
it to the
said
clerk.
earlier. Set up a priority list. What ordinance is the most important to you? What is the second? What is the third? What is the fourth?
Mhm.
Take a look at each, and if there are problems or discrepancies, solve the problems or discrepancies. If it means reenacting the ordinance, if it means amending the ordinance, do it. But you obviously can't do all of them at once.
It's
But if
impossible.
you've got a set of priorities, you can go one by one. Take the one that will see the most action, that is the most pertinent in terms of the problems that the village faces today.
Okay, but here's the problem, Jim. We passed that blight ordinance. I was thrilled.
I think
with
it's
that.
really
Okay.
interesting that they cut
Can I
my
finish?
name off.
And you suggested that you don't want to be dealing with the ordinance and that we should hire a part-time person.
I don't want to go.
That was in May or June, okay? I've been asking every month, do we have a list, do we have somebody? No, no, no. I can't keep asking, okay, because I'm so frustrated with this stuff, I can't even tell you. We need to hire a part-time, like a part-time contractual attorney.
Where is it?
We need to set in stone, like, I would like to see a.
Light ordinance, 146.
I have it. I would like to see somebody hired that's enforcement for ordinances and codes, okay? We need somebody to do with that. It's obviously not getting done in here. He's the lone rider over here pretty much, because there's two part-time people, just to let you guys know. One of them is being groomed to work in the jail as opposed to just working on the road, so she doesn't have a whole lot of time for the schedule. The other one
Oh, that's
is taking a,
Tomasika.
yes. And the other one works at Michigan Tech Public Safety, and he's doing this intensive, I don't know if it's paramedic or EMT course, and he's unavailable pretty much. So we don't have any people. Okay, so we need to, if, you know, like I said before, and I'm not trying to be grumpy, but I'm very frustrated that we never follow through with everything, Dave.
Scott, I've talked to Scott McGinnis, and he would have been here, but he was out of town. But he
Okay.
has said that he proposes that we put in place a blight advisory board, and he would come in and explain to us what that is, how it works. But again, he was out of town this month, otherwise he would have been here.
Yeah, like Flint, they have
Well, I agree that, but we need it for all the ordinances.
But look, I did this index
And
for
an
you.
attorney,
It's not here.
blight advisory board can advise you on this and advise you on
Somebody is
that.
supposed to
Where
be
the
able
hell
to
are you
come
at to
in.
get their advice?
Okay, this
But
is.
one of the big problems is, we got a lot of young lawyers in the area who are not terribly experienced. And trying to find one among them who's good, who can work with you on a long-term basis, is tough. I don't know them very well. I've seen them at the bar party or what have you. But I think if you go through the yellow pages and talk with one after another, and get some idea of what sort of law they're practicing and whether they like to do this kind of work, I think that's the thing to do. But you're going to strike out with a good number of them because, you know, they're doing other things with their practice. But what we really need right now is an attorney in the area who can do business work, business transactions, who's good at estate planning, who's good at office work, real estate work, and these young lawyers they don't do it. I mean,
Getting
they
back to
don't
my
want to do divorce
question,
work or criminal appointments or this kind of thing.
We're supposed to have our ordinances in order. I did a master list, it's not here, they've gone back to other, many different types of lists.
Hey, I spent 2
The
hours at this
ordinance-
table putting them in order, okay?
Yeah, but why
And
does
now
it
they're-
go from number 90,
Because people have gone through them,
63 to 145,
and they were
144?
in here when I did it, so I can't tell you. And I'm
Okay,
not gonna do it again because it's like banging my head. Jim, you're right about the attorney, but there's a missing link. We've got ordinances.
where's the blight ordinance?
I have a copy. If we have an ordinance, we need somebody that's going to be our enforcement
Yep.
person,
Yep.
okay? And then if the enforcement person has a problem, not a committee that's just gonna make their lips move.
No.
We need an enforcement person that can read and has half a brain and can say, okay, you know, I went around and this
The
person's grass is 4
police-
feet
the
high, and
police
give them a
issue-
copy of it.
Police issue a citation under the ordinance. People are really upset. They want to take it up to the district court. They want to get before the judge.
Mhm.
So
That's
if they-
when the attorney
if they
comes
go-
in.
if they get that far, you've got a lawyer. If they get that far and you don't have a lawyer,
Mhm.
the case will be dismissed.
Right.
But once again, let's go back, where's the blight ordinance? Somebody should be able to walk in off the street, find it, and see a fully
Well, that's
executed
because
copy
they
with the
take it
date of
apart.
publication.
There's another book.
Is there?
Yes, there's another book. That's because, Peggy, like I said, I spent time putting them all in order.
And it should be in the
And-
narrative, one
and-
to four, one
okay,
to
and
five.
it was.
should be in
But
order.
somebody
backwards.
took it apart and just takes what they want and then they put it on the top. And that is the responsibility of that office right there.
It looks like it's in order, but it looks
not.
like there's
Joe-
no blight,
Joe
there's
said
no
once
blight
it was
ordinance. What happened to the
Yeah.
blight ordinance?
I mean, do you remember when I
Wait,
was
wait a
sitting
minute,
here?
here we
I spent
go.
hours and hours.
Here's the
on
blight
this.
ordinance.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's not hard.
and is it signed by the president? Is it signed by the clerk? Is there a date of publication? Is there a?
They-
It's
they
like-
just said
It's
to
signed
me-
by David Geisler, president,
Mhm.
and the jurat is signed by Julie Dahlstrom,
Mhm.
and it shows that
What are you saying,
there's an
jurat?
affidavit that
What's a giraffe?
a certification that
this is a true and complete copy of ordinance.
Isn't there a little seal in the office that
It's
you
a
go,
certification.
boom, do we ever use it?
And it shows here that it was published in the Daily Mining Gazette on May 2nd,
Let's see.
2017.
How come when people go to the office, they never get something that's complete?
It was published 7 days after it was adopted by the
Yes,
village council.
I'm
It was
surprised.
published, okay,
That's good.
did it get to the village clerk so she can have record of it? Because all these ordinances are supposed to, I mean, the county clerk, yes, are supposed to be there. So that looks like it's in order, Peggy. Don't you think that you-
Yeah, we got the ordinance, that's good, and it's certified by the Gazette.
Mhm. Oh, here's the seal.
It's signed by
Seal there.
Julie.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, the missing link is enforcement. We can be wonderful and update
And
our
that's
ordinance.
why Scott
We need to hire
McGinnis,
somebody.
and that's why Scott McGinnis,
We-
put in that
this-
international
this
standard
is
for
the-
Odin, and he
No,
has said,
no, this
our first
book
course of action is to talk to them and
is-
find out how they implemented it in Odin.
I see that as a major problem
Yes,
as well.
he will be here next month, he will be here.
Well, that's
I
fine.
asked him to be here, but he's out of town.
Who? But I don't think that's, I don't think
Yeah,
that's
it's not
another
McGinnis.
committee.
Scott McGinnis isn't
I
going
know,
to
I'll-
get, Scott McGinnis isn't going to get you 6 inches
No,
forward.
I agree
Well,
with you.
he was an office, city manager, we
It's,
don't have
no,
form of
it's
government.
fine to talk to him. It's worthwhile talking with him. He's got a viewpoint on this, that, and the other thing. By all means, listen to him. But inevitably, you need an attorney who's going to court when somebody wants to push a citation on appeal or whatever up to the district court. If you don't have an attorney, and if somebody knows that they can take advantage of that fact by appealing until it gets
It's
dismissed.
wood, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, but what about, but the missing link, once again, is, here's the ordinance, we need somebody that is a ordinance/code enforcement. We need somebody employed that they can spend a couple hours a week, because I'm not gonna, I mean, I spent, what, 8 hours here, was it yesterday? No, Tuesday.
Sure, we are.
I went to 4 meetings, I spent 8 hours going to meetings, I was almost brain dead. Did I feel like we accomplished anything? No,
so
not really.
how many arrests is the chief making? How
I
many
have no
arrests?
idea.
Okay, so,
But
That's-
is he the one we
that's
want
the
that goes around and looks
He's
at
the-
And that's,
the
and
items?
that's the question, is how do we implement this? I mean,
Here's the
if you
problem.
believe we should hire someone, then that's for us
if
to
you
discuss.
hire somebody who is not licensed as a police officer, they can go out, they can investigate, they can come back, they can report, but they can't write a citation because they're not licensed as a police officer. The police officer has to get the thing started, a licensed police officer.
Not if it's a municipal,
Oh.
okay, because Holton doesn't have a police officer, they have code enforcement, ordinance enforcement, and that is not a police officer. They have a little pickup truck, that guy goes around and he does all these code ordinance, and he is
Talk
not,
with Scott McGinnis
he
to
is
see
not
what
a
they.
police officer.
Yeah, but does he actually write the citations? I doubt it.
Well, he would bring the information and then maybe
Yeah,
somebody,
okay.
then they can say, here's the
Okay,
report.
okay. But
You know?
remember, the city of Holton is a big place
I
geographically.
understand.
This is a postage stamp
Okay,
compared. So the police officers run up and down all the time. They know what the ordinance says. They can look around. If somebody's got junk in their yard, write a citation. If somebody's got a problem that should be addressed, write a citation. And,
I don't think he has time for that, because
well, what is he doing? What is he doing? I don't know what he's doing. It isn't apparent to me what he's doing.
The only other thing I have for today is, there was a box of ordinances in the corner. Where is it? Joel said it might be in there, but I don't want another box of
Where
missing documents.
was?
I don't know, it's either we gotta
So-
throw them all in garbage, or we have to enforce them and do it the right way,
Well-
because we don't have the ability to.
So I'd like
First of all,
Right.
this book is too small
I
for
can't
the
today.
stack that we got here. We gotta find some other book.
You're
We need
looking
2
for that
books to
box,
hold
right?
these goddamn things.
Well, the
There is
ordinance
another book,
Can you
okay,
say-
and this was done pretty darn
in the corner
nice.
of the
It
office.
looks like they're all in order. I just don't know that, I don't know
Well,
that.
it's tearing things out and made a mess.
So you can't put all of these.
Yes, they were all in there.
All of this?
All of that crap was in there, except, see that one big glob right there? That must be the zoning order. See that glob? That was something that was shoved in there. What is this, right?
But chronological order
That's
should go
only-
from 1 to 146,
That's,
not
that's
backwards.
Calumet Village Historic District ordinance. That's it.
That is not their
There
ordinance.
may be more than one ordinance.
Yeah, that's a whole
Yeah,
bunch of
there's a
stuff.
whole bunch of ordinances.
Yeah, so what they did was they took it out of the book and just put it back in the roller.
Well,
You can't have that.
we gotta find a better place to put these things. One of the problems we got is legal size is going out, so I don't know if you can even get a 3-week binder for legal size.
Well, make a copy of all these then, and then put the hard copies
shrink it.
and shrink it down and put the hard copies, like take that
Yeah.
book and boom in there, and then we have like
Yeah.
a bomb book, you can
Yeah.
put 1 through 50
Yeah.
in this bomb thing, 51
Yeah.
through whatever, because
Yeah.
this is a mess. Okay, who
Hire
wants to do
somebody.
that?
Hire somebody, hire somebody.
Yeah, we need to
You know,
have
part-time.
Well, we have somebody in the office, what are you talking about? We got 2 people and you're saying they can't put those in order in a day? That's true.
I did it in about 2 hours, I went through it all.
I put it to,
But
Did
copying
everyone time
is a
to-
different,
Yeah.
is a different animal.
Well,
Okay, that's another discussion for another day.
okay.
If you wanna say, what do they do in the office, you gotta help me with that too,
okay.
you know? I don't know.
And while you're here, there's that GoFundMe account for the Italian Hall Memorial.
Okay.
Dave set it up in April.
No, I did not. Mike Galati set up the GoFundMe account.
Who pays for that?
But you had to give them our general fund account.
Correct.
Well, you're commingling their money with our money, and you're not
No,
telling the
no.
council?
No,
Well,
we
what do you
agreed,
mean?
we agreed to accept funds for the Italian Hall. And so we accept checks for the Italian Hall. The GoFundMe page is an electronic way of receiving funds. I checked with Jackie Elto, she said there's nothing wrong with that it's not, that there's no questions concerning it. I know you talked to her, and I believe she told you the same thing. Is that not correct?
No, she said she can't tell us what to do.
That's not what she told me.
Okay, you think it's okay?
Yes.
I wouldn't do it, it's a bad practice. And, well, when you put,
I mean,
How much is there? How much money is there?
Less than $1,000.
you
And
give
to
out
me-
a general
to
fund
me-
account number to a volunteer
And is this
organization
a
without the
village?
council.
That account
Is-
number is on the bottom of every single check we write. The bank routing number and the account number is
But
in
you don't
every
give
check.
it to a
Okay,
volunteer
number one,
group without asking or telling the council.
Again, we
that
don't
this
ask,
happened.
can I accept a check from John Doe?
Well,
I mean-
Jack
I mean,
isn't an
it's an
attorney, what do
electronic-
you think, Jim?
I don't know what the hell's going on, so I don't know what to do.
Okay, are we accepting with the, okay, let me ask you a question, on GoFundMe, they don't send us a check, they do it electronically
It's
on
electronic,
the internet.
yeah.
Okay, so it's my understanding that they're doing it electronically, because I did look at it too, because Peggy.
So is this an account in the name of the village?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
It
And
says
and
for
what
the
you're saying
benefit.
is it's like PayPal or something like that?
Yes.
Some people
It's a
can-
way of
can
getting.
write a check
Instead of doing a check, you do it electronically.
Okay.
And then it goes into what fund?
General fund.
General fund?
Yeah.
That's bad.
So, there's about $1,000 in this account right now.
Well,
And
it
what,
goes into
what,
the Italian Hall Fund, yes.
okay, and how do you get it from there into the?
So electronic, it just automatically goes into our, yeah.
Okay, so I mean, why is there $1,000 in this account? Why isn't it all in the general fund?
It does, it goes into the general fund, and then Corinne puts it into the Italian Hall Fund. We have a separate fund.
Oh, okay.
Why wouldn't it just go into the Italian Hall Fund? Why are we putting it with our money that we disperse for our expenses?
Because they don't probably have an account number, but it's just a line item.
Right,
is what-
Sure, we have a savings account number,
right. And I don't think we have checks on it, I don't know.
but then you transfer it to the general fund, but by putting it in, I think it's disastrous.
Wow.
Well, if our,
What is it?
if our account says it's okay, we can roll with it, I guess, I don't know.
Right, I talked to her
I
just
don't have
this
any
morning.
standings to do anything.
So what you're saying is mechanically, it's inconvenient to have people send their electronic checks directly to the Italian Hall.
Some people would prefer to donate electronically rather than writing a check.
And
But
in
why
order
would
for
they-
them to donate electronically, it has to go into the general fund, can't go into the Italian Hall.
Why doesn't it go into the okay, maybe this is stupid, but why doesn't Mike Lottie have like a special fund for the Italian
Because
house?
it has to be donated to the village in order to get the tax deduction.
right.
That's
Okay.
why we're accepting checks.
That's a good
I mean,
answer.
and that's why it can't, he's not a 501c3.
I got you, so what is he? So if he's not 501c3,
It's a
Zero.
nothing.
he's
Yeah.
nothing.
He's just
So we're
a
just a
citizen who's
fiduciary
trying
for
to,
this.
he's just a.
And that we voted to accept that money.
I remember doing
But
that.
we never voted to set up a website for the benefit of David Geisler, the village.
My name is there only because my name is on the account, just as yours is, just as
So do
Stephanie's
fees
is.
involved with
No.
this?
Yeah.
Costs us.
GoFundMe takes
Right,
a
but
fee.
again, it's not village money, it's from the donation of the individual.
Well, why did you
banks.
think it was appropriate not to even mention it to the
Because to me,
trustees?
it's like writing a check. It's an electronic form of writing a check.
Well, I think you should have kept their money separate from our money.
It is being kept separate.
Do we have any
Do we get a
special
statement every
funds
month
like
then? Or will you give us
I
a
mean,
statement?
we have a water fund.
No, but I mean, do we have any other ones that don't have?
Every time you set up a fund, you have less time to put ordinances in books, so.
I agree with you.
Everybody's got a checklist of 25 things they want people in the office to do.
No, but if the village was gonna have a GoFundMe, I think it should be for sidewalk
I have a
repair
list myself.
and something that the council
And if
agreed to.
you
We
want to
just
set one
agreed
up.
to take money from Mike Lottie and he
That's
came in here physically
Of
and gave
all,
us
we're
money.
doing.
of all the things that we
So he
got
should
to
be
be
doing his
worried
own
about or
crowdfunding,
complain about, this has
not us.
gotta be, this has
Low
gotta
on
be,
the list, yeah.
this is down, way down.
You know what our biggest problem is, Peggy? We are trying very, very hard to move forward. And I think our biggest problem here is we're trying to do a good job. We make motions, we discuss things, we pass things, and then it just, poof, nothing happens. A lot of the times. And if we could just like do something and make it actually happen, it would be so great. Because I'm just so tired of going backwards all the time. I'm so tired.
Well,
And I don't know how we can fix that. I don't know how we can fix
I
it.
don't know, they're busy.
Oh.
Well,
I'm a great, yeah.
at our street committee meeting, at the last council meeting, the council made a motion, it was passed unanimously to get signs for the residential area, and someone told Steve to put it on hold. Why is that? It was a council motion, it was overdone.
He raised a question as to whether the signs along 5th and 6th Street should be nicer. And I said I would go to the DDA and ask if they would take a portion of
Right,
those funds.
but the motion was
And-
only for residential,
Right,
you
right.
had no right to just on
And
your,
then he was out sick. So-
on your own
so
to say,
he
don't
was-
order for the
he was-
residential
He was
either.
out sick. He was out sick. And I never told him he couldn't do it. I said, let me talk to the park, ask them their opinion. And then, like I said, he was out.
But that's the commercial area. Read the motion and see why you're putting a stop to council motion.
And I didn't. I never told him not to do it.
Oh, well then, that's what you didn't,
Well,
you shouldn't.
Dave, can I ask you one question, because I don't want to come to the meeting on Tuesday and have it be 7 hours long because people are complaining or rehashing. Could you please, at the meeting on Tuesday, we have, I went to the planning commission meeting and, just to look at me and Sandy went to see what our master plan was going to be. Could you please provide a list of, and I think I know who's on it, but what their terms are, when it expires, whatever, because we had that problem with the historic thing, and I am really tired of discussing something that we shouldn't have to be discussing. And wouldn't that be, for me, but just gonna be for back
And
then?
Mr. Sersha, I don't know what you were told, but on 2 different occasions in public, you have said, if I knew about the letter from Chris Green and chose not to tell the council. And that is not the case, and you know it, but you have tried to cast a shadow on what I did.
reiterated,
And I really resent that, and I'd like a public apology, because you did it 2 times. So I'd like you to take care of that in public.
I mean, a lot of people believe that you saw it and
We
did
are
it.
adjourned as
Okay, thank you.
I disagree, but
A person who is so careful about little things things
I was careful,
in the minutes and Bill was paid and so on.
and I was.
Who would
When
let
you-
something go like that? It's like a
When
camera
you
sitting on
have
your
a
desk.
stack of papers in the corner of the desk, and you go to a meeting, you do not read, you do not read, and you know it, you know I didn't.
Maybe you
Why
saw it,
do
you knew it, you didn't show it.
It is personal.
I know, we talked to him, not in a meeting setting, it's personal.
Okay, are we adjourning?
Yes.
We had adjourned
It's at
already.
1:15.
1:15?
Yeah, 1:15.
Okay, we're not adjourning. Can we go through
Oh,
that?
I did, done pieces like
Yep.
that, yeah.
Okay.
All right. Okay, now you're gonna make me know how to turn that thing off.